All right. So, welcome to the Zeal Show, episode 35, where all shows are unedited, unfiltered, uncensored, and unscripted. Where now I have a AI agent that helps me give me the news. He's my producer. Sometimes gets the news wrong, but at least he still does his job and helps me save 1 odd hour during the day. So, welcome. So, I am also streaming this on YouTube now. So, as I'm trying to build up the channel there, as I have a leadership channel, trying to share my leadership experience with people of all ages. Even though I'm trying to target more of the younger generation, I see from my analytics that I have people way older than me also watching my videos as well. So I'm trying to see how I can also add value to all ages, and yeah, see where we go from there. So today, let me see what the AI agent has given me. Let's see. Let me just click on the links. Click on this one. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Wow, everything today mostly it's on crypto. Just give me one just give me 1 second. Just need to close the door. I forgot to close the door. 1 second. All right, I'm back. Okay, let me just see if everything's ready. Okay, great. So before this, I have a few messages which I'll say daily for the new people that are here. Thanks for joining my channel. This is basically my mornings where I read my news anyway, with or without the camera. So I might as well share my opinions and thoughts at the same time of what I think on different matters around the world. So I use half an hour now. Usually I will do it on Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 a.m. Singapore time. Singapore time, Hong Kong time. This huge time zone in this part of the region. So we talk about different things from Bitcoin to leadership, strategy, geopolitics, everything. And now I'm streaming on YouTube as well. I want to see at what point they actually will start censoring stuff when I talk about crypto, politics, and so on. So that's why I'm opening that up to actually see at what point they actually start censoring, and I will be able to see it through my through my stats. Okay, so let's go ahead. So a lot of things have happened 2 days ago. We saw Elon drive up all the cars, right, to the White House. I do feel that he is unfairly treated. I still treat him, even though he's working so hard for the country. He's technically still a messenger, right, or a technical support, as he says, because he's not the one that is leading the vision for the next 4 years, leading where things go. He suggested Doge to the president, to President Trump, but if President Trump says no, then he can't work on it, right? And there are things that he doesn't want to check at the beginning or working on a few projects, right? If President Trump says, okay, you need to work on this, they will need to work on this. You need to go and get the astronauts in space now. Can you do it? And then, of course, he'll say yes. So he's technically a worker per se, technical support, and he is very unfairly treated, right? And I can see that Trump is trying to show him some support by buying a Tesla, and which some people have shown before. I bookmarked this, right? When Joe Biden drove up the the Rubicon to the White House, everyone thought it was great. And actually, a lot of parts and the company itself is actually not, many of the components are actually not very American made, right? And Trump drives or sits inside the Tesla, everyone thinks is bad. Like the media and the brainwashing that we have seen from a lot of people, it's actually very deep, and it's very hard to wash off, right? And yesterday I also spoke to my folks. A lot of them, the main narrative was that, wow, Trump is crazy, putting tariffs on everyone. Look at how Canada is reacting. But many don't know that Canada has put out a lot of tariffs on the US products going into the country as well. You have the poultry, dairy, and all of that, more than 200% tariffs on US products. No one talks about this. And one thing I find interesting is that when Trump put out the tariffs, Mexico, even though a little bit angry, the president is a bit angry, she comes to the table to negotiate. Whereas Canada is having a serious overreaction, right? Is it because they can afford to be angry? I was thinking about this. They can afford to be angry because they still have a lot of tariffs that they have earned throughout the years from the American citizens, and that at the same time, it's an election, so using this sort of anger can show up a lot of the votes. Because if it's the other way, let's say these were new tariffs and they haven't been earning at all, I would think that they will come to the table and speak to President Trump. So you can see the psychology and politics at play. Because I don't know if you guys know. Let me just bring it up on Grok. It'll make it much more clearer for everyone. I think I had. Let me just check quickly. I was checking it on Grok yesterday. The different tariffs that Canada was charging on the US. Let me see if I still have it here. Let me see if I still have it. I can bring it on the screen. Yep. So if you look at the tariffs, these are some of the existing tariffs that Canada charges on the US, right? Tariffs of up to 300% on dairy products, poultry and eggs up to over 250%. There's also tariffs on sugar and sugar-containing products, textile and apparel up to 18%. But no one talks about this, and Canada doesn't talk about this as well. Canada's just being so angry that the politicians are putting out the narrative that they shouldn't charge us 25%, but no one talks about how much they're charging the US, right? And I checked on Mexico. Mexico doesn't really charge any tariffs at all, okay? And then so with this imbalance, then they are going to talk to President Trump on this, right? But Canada charges a lot, and I can see that it's deliberate that they are not talking about this. And at the same time, the Chinese are charging them tariffs as well, and they don't talk about this. They're just targeting Trump for some reason. That deep state seems to be way further outside of the U.S. So it is actually very interesting how the dynamics are going. So whenever we look at information now, whenever people scream at President Trump or scream at a particular a figure, my instant reaction is now either go on X and scroll and see what's going on, or go on Grok to actually find the truth, right? And also for the inflation as well, I went on ChatGPT to actually look for the truth, what they talk about in terms of the inflation. And guess what? ChatGPT says that inflation in the U.S. has been increasing, and when they search the web on the resources that they are referring to, it's Associated Press and all the big ones, But when I showed ChatGPT that if you look at the site called Trueflation, that inflation has been coming down, the ChatGPT was like, "Oh, you're right. Inflation has been coming down." But when I checked on Grok, Grok gave a much more comprehensive, deep research on the topic of inflation than ChatGPT did for me. So I really now I'm very convinced. If you want to find the truth about something, you have to go on Grok. You can read through the deep research on what it actually searches. So for example, here, if I go on deep research, it will actually tell you what it's thinking, right? So it will actually go and search on all the different things. ChatGPT does that as well, but if you read through the deep research, Grok is much more transparent with its thinking and much more clear. ChatGPT deep research doesn't do it to this sort of level, even though it, one, takes longer, two, it's still very, I find it very biased, okay? However, I'm starting to see the pros and cons of the both AIs. I'm digressing a bit, but at least I need to let everyone know. Writing copy or helping you to come up with content that looks nice, that is more quality and doesn't frustrate you. When I say frustrate you is because when you talk to Grok, after a few 5 or 6 messages, it forgets what it has written previously after 3 or 5 messages. But ChatGPT does it very well, and it writes much more nicely at times than Grok does. But finding the truth and understanding the context, Grok wins hands down compared to all the other AIs out there. Okay, so I do encourage you guys, if you do want to find information and be outside the bubble, okay, use Grok 3 deep research to find the information. But for content, I'm still not convinced Grok is doing a very good job. So I'm still using ChatGPT when I'm dealing with content for my different channels and so on. Yeah, sorry, digressing a bit. But yeah, so it's important to find the truth, right? And Canada, now we know that it's not really on Trump. Canada has a political motive to actually get the message out to what they want their citizens to hear. Okay, so it's actually very unfair. And also the local news here in, even in Singapore, somehow the messages are all the same. They don't really talk about the existing tariffs that Canada has. They only talk about seeing, or so-called objectively, that the broad-based 25% that Canada is not happy with. Okay, so let's go to the next topic. So I also put out a message yesterday on this. So this is about the Ukraine, the settlement for the 30-day. So just to give more context, I'm sure many of you know. Actually, wait, this picture is, you find it interesting. Trump doesn't really look like Trump here. But anyway. So there's a 30-day ceasefire. And apparently, from what the US side is saying, is that Ukraine has agreed. I saw the messages by Zelensky on X. He did not say he disagreed, but he wasn't there for the meeting. His delegation was there for the meeting, right? And now it's on Russia's side. The court is on Russia's side if they want to cooperate on this 30-day ceasefire. But then at the same time, I was thinking China actually had a lot of opportunities to mediate the Ukraine-Russia war. But instead, they were very silent on this. Even now, they are very silent on how to deal with the situation. But I actually find it very interesting that they don't come out to say anything or want to mediate this. And now when Trump says he wants to stop the war, President Trump's going to get all the glory if this really happens, right? So I don't know what is President Xi actually doing right now at the back. I know there's a lot of focus on technology. For example, on the AI front, DeepSeek and all of them are really pushing it hard, right? Pushing hard to uh, beat a lot of the AI companies in the US, coming up with different open source codes, uh, trying to tell the people around the world that they don't need to charge that much. A lot of this can be open source and so on. But on the external front, I don't know why China is very silent on this. But I do agree with here that from here that if we want a sustainable ceasefire or a stop to the whole to end the war, they really need China to be in the picture. But I don't know what's going on. China's very, very silent now. Um, so I would, yeah, let's see where this goes. But at least a very good first step now is the 30-day ceasefire should be coming, and I hope that will follow through. But what is this particular article talking about? Let's see. And again, all these articles that I just opened up, the AI agent brought it to me this morning, and to keep it more genuine, I actually haven't read it and just we're reading this together. But to make it easier, let's bring this over to Grok. Okay, and then ask it what is this about? Because we only have half an hour. Half an hour for this show. Okay, it's saying that they need to pursue a strategic, I don't know how to read this, with China, but basically that means need to work with China on this. As China has been significant. Okay, the central thesis is that a thaw in US-China relations could weaken Russia's position, as China has been a significant economic and diplomatic supporter of Russia amid Western sanctions. The article posits that Russia's resilience in the war, despite losing significant military and economic resources, stems partly from China's assistance, such as buying Russian energy and providing dual-use goods. By reducing tensions with China, the US might persuade Beijing to scale back this support, thereby pressuring Russia to negotiate a settlement more favorable to Ukraine. Okay, so I think the assumption, the writer of this article is saying that Russia will decide on its position according to China's influence, right? On what China says, but it may not be the case, because if you look at history, China and Russia weren't always on the best of terms. There was at one point in Chinese history that, yes, they were very good because of their links to communism, but then at one point, Mao actually thought the values between the two sides actually broke off, right? It were very different. And then at the same time, even now, a lot of information out there shows that China's and Russia's relation is more one way than two ways. I know China has declared unlimited friendship with Russia, but Russia never really mentioned that, agreed on that at all. They were actually very silent on this. So this is an assumption that to stop the war, it relies on the thawing US-China relations. It may not be the case. I don't fully agree with this. So that's my position. I think US can actually just push his way through and negotiate a position with Russia without China. But let's see where this goes. I mean, the first thing, again, as I said, is the 30-day ceasefire. I think that will show a lot. There will be more information from Russia's side if they actually agree to this at all. Okay. Okay, so that was about this. Okay, what is this one about? What nobody understands about Trump's Bitcoin reserve. Okay, so let's put this through Grok as well. As many of you know, as I said, information is to me worth zero knowledge. There's no point being the pro person now because AI knows more than us. It's more important that our reactions to the information is something that the AI cannot replicate, right? So it's more important to me that AI tells us what it thinks, and then we give the reaction to it. Okay, so what is this about? Just a side note, speaking of AI, I know there's, it's a science fiction. I call things now science nonfiction now because we're really reaching to a point where science fiction is becoming a reality. There's a show it was a game that became a show now called Halo. I encourage everyone to watch. It is very interesting where one of the soldiers had a chip implanted into their heads where there is a AI that is so-called following him. And this AI, you can think of it as ChatGPT in your head. There's pros and cons to it. The intent of this AI being in the head was, well, at least at the part of the show that I'm watching, it's like a spy implanted into him, which he didn't want that. But it actually is quite useful, right? If we're using ChatGPT every day, getting the information and so on. If the intent is having an AI in your head and you're able to answer anything very quickly, I don't mind that myself, but I don't want it as a spy, okay, beside me, watching me all the time. But it's a good show to watch, and I do recommend it. Okay, so let's see what this is about. Based on the provided search context and the article's title, it's likely explores how Trump's initiative positions Bitcoin as a strategic national asset akin to traditional gold reserves, okay? So I think I should ask it in a much more deeper way. So what is it that it says that nobody understands? Okay, what it thinks it's talking about Bitcoin's singular status over other cryptos. It is true. I hope more people understand this because I also was I also had the position that I don't really support having a crypto reserve, and I'm very happy to see that they actually don't have a crypto reserve but have a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a crypto stockpile. This is very good because as a reserve, it means that they will not sell, they would accumulate, but they will increase it. A crypto stockpile basically means, I think under the treasury, they are able to buy and sell. So they have the power to sell other cryptos. But for Bitcoin, they are accumulating as a reserve. So it's actually very different. And it makes sense because Bitcoin, as I mentioned many times, is really the only asset that has the trust of majority of the whole crypto ecosystem, right? Because time and time again, it's shown that whoever this Satoshi person, guy, girl, group doesn't come out. There is no key man risk. It's the only decentralized asset that comes out, that is around, right? There is no key man risk at all, whereas Ethereum or other crypto assets, there is a key man risk. And if they leave, it will significantly influence the price. Whereas today, if you have been in the crypto system long enough, if Satoshi surfaces again, no one really cares. Okay, so that's the main difference. There is no key man risk. It's already assumed that Bitcoin is the digital gold. No matter what happens with Satoshi coming out again, no one cares, is what matters the most. Okay, so Bitcoin is the only fully decentralized asset out there that everyone can accept. Hence, that's why I support it as a reserve, the only asset for the strategic reserve. Okay, second, it says that economic implications overhyped. It might be pointed out that the focus on Bitcoin as a reserve isn't just about market validation or price pumps. Instead, it's about fundamental shift in how the US could use Bitcoin geopolitically, say as a hedge against inflation or a tool in international finance. This is very true. So if you have followed on what Michael Saylor has been saying, the founder and CEO of MicroStrategy, he has been advocating something even more extreme, selling gold to buy more Bitcoin. His main intent is saying that gold is something that has been has ownership by a lot of the enemies of the U.S., right? But Bitcoin is still, in a way, nascent, that not all countries or enemies of the U.S. actually owns the gold. So this is still early days for U.S. And if U.S. buys more Bitcoin, even selling the gold to buy Bitcoin, when Bitcoin prices go up, right? U.S. has a lot of influence over the Bitcoin prices. Okay, Bitcoin being more centralized is another issue, but from what it's trying to say is this is an opportunity for U.S. to have a lot of say on the actual use of Bitcoin, whether it's an asset, whether it's for a geopolitical purposes, hedging inflation, a tool for international finance. It's an opportunity for U.S. now once they set this into law. Okay, what else is it trying to say? Another possibility is that it underscores a vulnerability people overlook. Since the SBR relies on executive order, not legislation, it's reversible by a future president. This is also another problem. But it seems like the Democrats are having a hard time, or at least as far as I can see, Democrats may not be able to get the next election. As far as I can see now, nothing seems to be changing. There doesn't seem to be a leader that can win the next election. If Republicans win, which means JD may be the next one, we may have the best scenario: 12 years of Republican rule, right? And if JD Vance wins the next election, then this executive order can last for at least 12 years. And 12 years is a lot for crypto, especially for Bitcoin. Bitcoin halves every 4 years. It technically goes through 3 halvings with prices can pump much higher, right? As I mentioned in my charts before, if we go back to the charts, okay, let me bring it up. I won't talk about the price today. I talked about it yesterday. So our target is hitting around this. But if it pumps up now, I'll just quickly say then. If it pumps up now, I hope it goes above 92. But if it hits this price, where it was a support, now became resistance, and then comes back down, we're definitely going to go a bit lower. But I'm not talking about this now. I want to talk about, what's going on? No, that's not what I want. Okay, let me just go like this. I want to show you the monthly chart, right? So this links to the 12-year cycle the 4-year cycle that I'm talking about. I'm very unfamiliar once I'm trading panel, not this. How do I get back in? How do I get back into seeing the chart? Okay, how about this? Okay, here, okay. Where's my unnamed here? Let me just open it up. Ichimoku. I think it was this one that I had. One day. Oh, my charts, it's all over the place. All right, doesn't matter. 1 minute. I want the 1 month chart. Here, monthly chart. Okay, I'll just open this one. No, it's not this one. Let me just go. Is it this one? Oh, it disappeared. Is it? This one. Maybe it's on this this particular one. Yes, this one. Okay, so if we look at this, right, these are lines that I have that shows the halving. And I mentioned again, this is not causal, this is just observation. Every time halving happens, prices go up. Right, prices go up. And if JD wins another 4 years, right, so 2024 to now 2025, 6, 7, 8, okay, so one halving, and then you may have another, halving in 4 years, around there. I don't know what the exact time is. And then you have another one. The prices will go much higher. So 12 years of Republican rule with this executive order staying in effect, it's going to affect everything. And if prices go up above $1 million or so, for example, do you think the next president will dare to remove the executive order? It might even be in legislation after that, right? So I don't think the point about it being an executive order, not in legislation, is a very strong point, because the only time that this may happen is when we see Republicans screw up, Democrats doing well, it switches back again, then we may have a problem. But if we have a 12-year, best scenario, a 12-year Republican rule, is 12 years of executive order with SPR in effect, Bitcoin will definitely go much higher, and US can have very influential effects on the Bitcoin price and the use of Bitcoin as well. Okay, and the last one, it says what seized Bitcoin. It highlights the confusion around the funding mechanism. Many assume that US would buy Bitcoin, but using seized assets. So yes, it wasn't clear, but Senator Cynthia Lummis came out to say that she is now revisiting the Bitcoin Act to be able to buy more Bitcoin. I think until 1 million Bitcoin in total. That is also not clear yet, but I think a lot is going on right now on what its US strategy on the SPR would be. Okay, so that's interesting. We talked about this. What does it mean? It just, to me, US is becoming more friendly. And I also mentioned on my LinkedIn post that a lot of the jurisdictions that have crypto licenses today are tightening up. And I really fear that if US is opening up and banks are opening up to a lot more companies in the that are operating crypto, and if Asia, especially like Singapore and them and so on, do not review the existing licensing regime to make it more competitive, there is really no point competing in crypto anymore. Singapore will lose out. And we will be able to see that in the next 12 to 24 months on what actually happens, right? Because America is definitely going to be much more friendlier than it was compared to 4 years ago. Okay, what is this about? Definitely did not read this. Okay, let's ask Grok again. What is this about? The driving changes of the Arctic geopolitics. Yes, we know about Greenland. Trump is really insistent. Trump is going the way. How Trump is negotiating with Greenland really mirrors on what happened in history, on how Winston Churchill influenced Roosevelt to come and join World War II, right? I spoke about this before, that the way that Zelensky is trying to ask for money to the point when they had a clash at the White House is very different to how Winston Churchill was influencing the president to join the war in Europe. because UK was alone, but at the same time, Winston Churchill used more of empathy, basically writing a lot of telegrams and notes to over 1,000 of them, from what I know, to Roosevelt, telling them how Europe was like. We are all alone, as in UK was all alone. Hope one day you can see where we're going. So building up to the point when Pearl Harbor was attacked, all the efforts that Winston Churchill put in convinced Roosevelt to join the war, right? So it is very similar, but in a way where Trump is convincing Greenland to do in a very similar way. We're not like rushing you to join us, but we have all these resources for you. By joining the US, you have all these benefits in a very slow way. But the difference is back then, Winston Churchill did not have enough time to actually convince Roosevelt. Every single day that was passing, Churchill was very scared, very worried that the Nazis would actually attack. But they were lucky that after the Battle of Britain and sometime later, Nazis turned east and went for Russia, went for USSR. So that was a relief for Churchill. But time was a problem, whereas now time isn't really a strong problem. But what President Trump is trying to see is prevent a lot more of the geopolitics and tension happening in the Arctic region. So getting Greenland was for national security. But I'm not talking about whether this is right or wrong. I'm talking about in terms of negotiation strategy, it's very similar to what Churchill did before. So I think a lot more is going to happen, but I don't think Trump is going with the force, using any means of force to actually get Greenland. It doesn't make sense. If it's part of Greenland, it's part of NATO. And then when it's so-called attacked, Article 5 will trigger, right? But I haven't read fully what Article 5 means. Does it mean that if it's an enemy attack, it will trigger? But what happens if it's someone within NATO that attacks? Would it trigger? This one, I'm not sure. Okay. So there's a lot of things happening. I'm just mindful of time. So yeah, climate change, we know that that's also happening at the same time. But yeah, so nothing that I think are very important to discuss. What really pops out to me is the way that how Trump negotiates with Greenland. Just want to share with everyone here. Okay, we talked about this. Oh, okay, so this is the last piece of news. Okay, great. So we talked about a number of things today. Talked about the Ukraine war today, and I also think that China needs to be in the. China doesn't have to be in the picture, but it will be good if they are also in the picture, right? I really think at this point in time, US, if China doesn't come in, it's actually China's loss in terms of the negotiations on how to end the war. I don't think that Russia really wants China to be the boss of the relationship per se. If it ends the war right now, and if even for both scenarios, if Russia's on the weaker end or Russia's on the stronger end, Russia just wants, as what Jeffrey Sachs has said, doesn't want NATO to really push eastwards. And if Russia is saying that can get the pieces of land that under Ukraine, like whatever the particular negotiation terms that they want, and Trump wants to stop it, and if somehow Ukraine somehow agrees, I'm also quite confused on how this happened so fast, then the war will stop, right? I don't think Russia. I also don't believe that Russia wants to conquer Western Europe by fighting. It just doesn't make sense. But that's the narrative that the media has put out, right? So we talked about that. We talked about the Arctic, especially how negotiation is happening with Greenland, and it's not going to be fast. It's going to take time. Talked about Bitcoin. Yes, it's still selling, but we talked about the price yesterday. But in terms of the Bitcoin reserves, we talked about that as well. And I do think it's really prime time that we should not treat the executive orders as something very light, because unless Democrats can come back and we see them as a formidable a party at the election, then things will change. Otherwise, if we, the best case scenario we will have is a 12-year Republican rule. This executive order is as good as being in the legislation already. Right, so what else did we talk about? Yes, we talked about all that. So great. So talked about a lot of things today. I also learned a lot myself. A lot of the media here is still having a position that Russia is in the weaker end, the weaker one in the talks, which I don't agree. They have to go and save Ukraine. Ukraine's the one being hit. For me, it's just I also just want peace. I just don't want the war to continue. I'm convinced what Jeffrey Sachs has talked about in terms of what Russia wants. Russia doesn't want to conquer Western Europe. What Russia just wants a buffer to not have NATO creep into its borders. Okay, I am for that position. Yeah, so that's it for my talk today. Thanks for everyone for joining, and I hope you guys have a good week ahead, and I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.